Tony right now. He had her number in his phone.
I'm a little bit surprised about the center is open because my wife meets in one of the other centers in Arlington, and they're closed, and they were told it might be the end of the year before they could get back in there.
Wow.
But maybe they're handling each location differently. It may be a function of what they use it for or how they can take care of it. I don't know.
Yeah.
So, I mean, normally they use that place for an election, you know, a polling place.
Correct.
Election day. So it may be that they're having to prep that and you know, get it ready. I don't know.
Richard, if I see her again, I'll see if I can give her my phone number.
Okay.
So she can give us some information and I'll pass it on to you.
Thank you.
I promise I won't get in trouble.
You won't.
Well, Rich, I guess we could go around and do a show and
All
tell
right.
if you want to do that, or
All right. Well, I was going to say, we pretty much got everybody we're expecting at this point. I haven't seen Ralph. I presume he's not in on the call then. Is that correct?
I haven't seen him.
Okay. I'm just looking at the people here. Everybody I see pretty much was in on the Expo call last week. Is that correct? Is there anybody who wasn't in on the Expo board meeting?
I wasn't.
Gene and Jim.
Okay, a couple of you. Well,
and Art.
okay, let me do a quick rundown. That was one of the pieces of business. Couple things related to Expo is we've canceled the silent auction, and we've canceled the awards dinner, and we're kind of looking to see how many exhibits come in. As of last Wednesday, there were very few. It may be that we will roll the exhibits back into the main room. I understand Stan and Ralph are going to go over to the convention center and see what we could and couldn't do and what restrictions we'd be on. So we're kind of up in the air a little bit. But the expectation is that Expo will proceed in some scaled down form for those who weren't in on the last call. That's it. Do we have any?
Yeah, there was one thing about the expo. Dave, there was somebody down in Granbury doing that mystery box. You're muted, Dave.
Okay, I sure will.
No.
Yeah, that somebody was doing a mystery box, which we'll put that on hold and just hold it till next year.
Okay. I think that's probably the wise thing to do if we're not going to have the silent auction. Well, there's Mr. Cartier.
There's Ray.
He has to unmute his thing.
Yeah, I'm asking him to unmute. There we go.
Okay.
All right, Ray, we got you now.
Okay, fine.
You need to stop yelling.
I don't have enough light here, but we'll just live with what I got. Karen's right next to me.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi, Karen.
Hi.
Okay.
Well, we haven't proceeded very far at this point. We were just reviewing a little bit of what happened at Expo, the board meeting, bringing a couple people up to date. And I was going to ask if any of the other officers had anything they needed to bring up to the meeting.
Mm-hmm. Well,
I got an answer on the convention center.
I'm right now. I'm picking up like about 5 faces. Okay, not the whole group though, but okay, we can get along with this. It's better. The only thing I can add to is I sent out 58 emails to individuals today asking them if they could exhibit, and I've got one back, yes, and he's given me something, and another one says he's going to check with some other people and see what they can do. So I'm just trying to get exhibits. I had only 19 pages as of the meeting, 19 frames, excuse me, as of the meeting. Okay.
Okay, well, thank you. We'll again, I think we're kind of playing that one by ear. In the middle of September sometime, we'll find out how many of the dealers are still in or out. Apparently, there was a 15th December, I think, was the deadline to withdraw and get most of their money back. So 2 weeks from now, we ought to have a pretty good feel on what the dealer representation will be.
Okay.
And we'll, Ralph will figure out from there where we go, I suspect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think we set September 10th, was it, or 15th? Either 10th or 15th is the
10
deadline.
or 15.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that's fine. All right, I don't know if there's any other real official business that we could do show and tell if anybody's got something. I know we started a little bit, people talking, Ken kicked off something.
Richard,
Anybody have anything else?
Richard, yes. Richard,
Yes?
yeah. I just talked with Tony, and the convention center is open now, and it will be open in October from all the reports. The one thing they're requiring is we can only have 50% capacity in the room, which means about 40, 45 people.
So, all right, so I mean, we could have 20 people roughly?
Well, no, you can have 40.
Okay, that seemed like, that's more than we would have in a normal meeting.
Right.
And this is not normal, so I wouldn't, I mean, with the ones we tried in July, we had what, 18, 19 something, wasn't that about the head count?
Oh,
Yeah.
I think
And
he
so
was
I wouldn't-
talking, I think he was talking about what we could have at the expo.
No, he was talking about at the
Oh, okay.
meeting.
Bob Duncan Center.
Okay, I understand.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Ray.
we were trying to, someone had brought up that the convention center was open. They had seen Tony and were told it was open, and I didn't get any word on that ahead of time. And so if that's the case, we can plan on an in-person meeting. Is it possible, Rick, to set up Zoom from there, or you have to be like at your home computer to operate that?
I will have to check into that. I don't know for sure.
All right.
I might be able to do
Because
it
I know
on,
number, yeah,
I might be
okay.
able to do it on a laptop, but I'm not sure how our connection there at the center is. I don't think
Yeah, I
we
do
have a
not
very
know.
good one.
I'll be glad to get back in there. I've got most of the Scott catalogs for the year at my house, waiting to try to take them in the room and to figure out which ones are there that we want to sell. And so I'll try to get that done so we get the next newsletter. We can put out a word on these catalogs are for sale and create some space and recoup a little bit of the cost, maybe.
Richard?
Yes.
Yeah. Tony also asked that, we call her and let her know about the fact that we're going to be there in October. And also she wants us to request her so she can be there.
Okay. So whom do I call?
I call
And
Tony.
what's the phone number? Okay.
I call Tony, and I'll
All
put
right.
the phone number on in an email to you.
Yeah, thank you very much. Appreciate that. All right. We were looking at show and tell or something, anything else along that line?
The only
Anybody?
Rich, the only question I have is for Ray. Is the chance board going to be happening during the expo?
I didn't quite understand is what?
Chance board.
Chance board?
Passport. I don't understand.
Chance board.
Chance.
Oh, transport?
Chance.
Okay. I'm sorry. Karen says chance board. Yes, the chance board is going to be ready.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Hey guys,
Anybody?
I have a show and
James,
tell.
you got something?
yeah, I've got a little deal here. I was
All righty.
in the store and I found this little deal. I don't know if you can see it with the light, but it's had tea in it. Well, I wasn't that much interested in, but it looks like a phone booth. But on this backside, it says stamps. I had to buy the darn thing then, you know. And it converts into a bank. It's got a slot in the top of it. But I thought it was pretty cute. It's a telephone booth, but it looks like they're selling stamps out of it too. So, I
Looks
don't
like
know
a
where-
British phone booth.
Yeah, it does. Of course, it's red, not blue. So it's not Doctor Who's, but
Well,
anyway,
thank
I
you.
thought it was cute. I thought I'd show you.
Chuck, you had something there?
Yeah. I got this letter that I sent to my fiance at the time. I had just come back from the canal zone. And so I had some extra stamps from the canal zone. And just for the fun of it, I stuck one on. I turned it upside down and I wrote on it above postage. It said, I just wrote on it US. And it went through the mails without any trouble in cancellation. So.
And what year is that?
That was in 1970. It was a 10-cent canal zone stamp, and the rate at the time for first class was only 6. And although the canal zone was using U.S. Currency, so because it was part of the U.S. at the time. So anyway, I just thought it interesting. I don't know whether you can see it a little bit better there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I turned it upside down anyway because I put all my stamps on upside down.
Mhm. We were doing that too back then.
Yeah. It means
And
I
what
love
was the
you.
purpose?
Yeah.
What was
it's
the
not-
purpose of putting it upside down? What was the purpose for that? Just,
If it's I love you,
Yep.
I see. Okay, thank you.
that's what it meant back then. It means other things today.
Well, I wondered because I know if you fly a flag upside down, it means distress.
Yeah.
But I didn't know about stamps. I see.
Yep.
Oh yeah, and on the back he wrote SWAK, sealed with a kiss.
Yeah, usually this particular one, I didn't have that on there. A lot of them had all kinds of things like that or whatever.
Mhm.
Okay, anybody else got something to show and discuss?
Well, I'll
All
just
right.
tell you, I got a call this afternoon from a friend of mine. He was 1/3 of our stamp club in the colony when I lived up there. So anyhow, I had told him, he came to the Stamp Expo last year, and he's also the one who loaned me the Australian Railroad posters that we put in a display case. It matched the theme of our expo was railroads. But he called me today and said he's sending me a box of all kinds of stamps. And he said you can use them for the expo. He went through his collection, and where he had 5 or 6 duplicates, he pulled out a bunch of them and put them in a box, and he's sending them over to me so we could use them for the expo. Like we didn't have enough on that table back there to start with.
Now,
But these are probably better than a lot of those were back there. So.
I talked to Bob Wiederman this last week, and
Mhm.
yeah, he's very well supplied with stamps.
Yeah.
And so the mixture will be in good shape.
Yeah, I spoke to Bob last night. He called me because I'd been trying to let him know when we were or weren't meeting, and as I said, we weren't in person. But he seemed very eager to be able to get out to Expo and,
Yes.
you know. All right, anything else there? Are we ready to go on to our program for the evening, if Ray is up to it?
We're going to try it. I'm nowhere near as good at this as Rick Howell is, but I've got my slideshow on pictures, and Karen's going to move the pictures while I give some talk. You guys are going to have to let me know whether or not you can see them, because I'm only picking up 2 faces at a time on this, so I can't even see myself right now. So let me know whether this is in focus. I'm going to put it in now, and we'll see how this works. I need the Glen book, wherever it is. Can you see that? And is it clear? Anybody?
See half of it.
Huh?
You can see the top half.
If you click on the speaker view, his picture comes in.
Speak on the speaker.
Speaker view at the top.
Okay, I have a Zoom meeting at the top, but I don't have a speaker view.
Well, this is for everybody else, not
Oh.
you.
They can only see the top half.
Can you see the whole page there?
I don't think we're
Yes.
seeing the bottom of it. I'm not
Oh,
sure.
yeah, I've
Okay, I
got
can
it
move it
now.
down a little.
I did
Okay.
speaker view.
There you go.
Okay, can you read it?
Yes.
Okay. Okay. The Frontiers of Flight Museum
Quit
contacted me in, what, Karen?
You're yelling.
Okay, I'm yelling, she says, so I'll try not to yell. The Frontiers of Flight Museum called me and they wanted to know if I could had anything on Apollo 13. And I told him I had a one-frame exhibit. So he asked me to put it into a PowerPoint presentation, which I did for them, and they use that. Since I don't know how to use PowerPoint at the same time as I'm speaking, I've changed it so that Karen will pull the pages up and I'll just kind of give you some status on what it is. So this is the story of Apollo 13. Failure is not an option. Okay, Karen. Apollo 8, 10, 11, and 12 had already carried men to the moon. So Apollo 13 wasn't of interest to too many people. People just got tired of it. It was just same old thing. They called it redundant. And the baseball season was about to begin. And if anything's redundant compared to the space program, I think baseball would be. The liftoff occurred on April 11th, and this cover in the lower left-hand corner has a blue rubber stamp. The postmaster at Kennedy Space Center, when he started the postal station up, he created a rubber stamp for the opening, and then he decided to put a rubber stamp on all mail going out of Kennedy Space Center post office for each one of the launches to follow. This worked out pretty well, and collectors started putting these as a premium cachet to purchase. Meanwhile, NASA bought postcards and gave out, they had girls passing out in the VIP center, or area where we sat by the bleachers right next to the vehicle assembly building. And they would hand out 5 postcards, and only 5 postcards, to each person that was at the VIP site. Those people could put addresses on them and buy stamps at a couple of tables that were set up at the VIP stand. They could also buy stamps there. And then they even had 2 mail bags where you could drop your postcards to mail. Since these were all for non-collectors, finding a full set of VIP cards took me several years, probably about 10 years. So this is the VIP card for Apollo 13. Next. Now this cachet pictures the original Apollo 13 crew of astronauts, Lovell, Mattingly, and Hayes. However, Mattingly was exposed to the measles and he was replaced by Jack Swigert at the very last minute and too late to change the covers. These were made by the Manned Spacecraft Center Space Club, or Stamp Club down in Houston. This cover bears what they call the KSC Open Globe Cancel. If you'll notice right next to the rocket liftoff, there's a globe showing the NASA emblem, and it's white. Those cancels were used at the Visitor Information Center as opposed to at the Kennedy Space Center post office, which, by the way, was closed to the public. You had to be badged to get to that post office. This one is was signed by NASA Administrator George Lowe. Okay, once the launch occurred, they had many stations around the Earth, like this one from Maine, which could only make contact while the craft was in Earth orbit. Of the many tracking stations on the Earth, only 4 were deep space networks, which could communicate with spacecraft once they had left orbit and out to the moon. Goldstone in California, as shown here, 1 in Spain, and 2 in Australia. Well, late on Friday the 13th, an explosion rocked the Apollo 13 command module, which we just called a CM, after the astronauts had docked with the Lunar Excursion Model, or the LEM. Lovell called out, "Houston, we have a problem." Well, one of the cryogenic oxygen tanks had exploded behind the command module, rendering the crew unable to finish the moon landing. The explosion took place on Friday the 13th at 13:13 p.m. A team of engineers rushed to the Johnson Space Center to try to find a way to save the crew's lives. Now, just a few months earlier, the movie Marooned popularized a fictional story in which 3 astronauts were in a similar predicament. But this wasn't a fictitious story. It was deadly serious. About 2 a.m. on Saturday the 14th, Gene Kranz gathered engineers at the Johnson Space Center, and he gathered some more at Kennedy Space Center by phone to all try to get together to solve the multiple problems at hand: oxygen, water, mechanical, and so on. He exhorted them by stating, "Failure is not an option." The decision was made to let the craft circle the moon and return to Earth using both the command module and the LEM, the Lunar Excursion Model, as lifeboats. When I met him at a book signing, I asked him if he'd please write "Failure is not an option" on my cover, which he did for me after hesitating a minute. At the time this happened, I was working at a company that used the Dow Jones teletype, and I ripped off this sheet, and it's judges accepted it. I wasn't sure. I didn't know whether or not to put it in an exhibit or not, but because it is a communication device, I guess, they liked it because it was dated. This is set out at the time as this was all going around. So it talks about where everybody was and how they were trying to get back to Earth satisfactorily. Now, there wasn't enough oxygen left to return to Earth at the rate of use that it had. The air filtration system wasn't working. So they decided to fire the LEM rockets, the Landing Lunar Excursion Model rockets, to speed up the return by 10 hours, and they moved their recovery from the Indian Ocean to the Pacific Ocean. All 3 men entered the LEM, from which they spent the rest of the journey. This was to save energy by not having to heat the command module. And you can see on there the extra, looks like a cancel, but it was printed on the cover later. Moon landing mission aborted, 4:14:70. Lunar module engine fired at 2:43 a.m. Houston time for emergency return flight trajectory. Engineers duplicated efforts that the crew could use with what was available to them to repair some of the failing systems. Water was short. The temperature was dropped to 38 degrees Fahrenheit. A makeshift adapter was created to cleanse the air of carbon dioxide using materials from aboard the craft. This all came from various engineers and from the manufacturers of these vehicles. So like here, this cover is from McDonnell Douglas, who created the 3rd stage of the rocket, which was part of the configuration that they had at that time left while they were in space. So even these guys were called in to consult with the NASA engineers to try to find some way to save these guys' lives. Once they went around the moon and returned back towards the Earth, the lunar lander lifeboat was separated and burned up as it entered the Earth's atmosphere. And so you see on that cover, it says, "Farewell Aquarius, and we thank you." So it went in the atmosphere, burned up, and their capsule landed right on target. It was so close to it that the people on deck could see the helicopters and C-130 aircraft encircling the splashdown site. TV cameras on board the ship recorded the splashdown and the recovery of the crew. This is the ship that recovered it, the USS Iwo Jima. The recovery was made south of Pago Pago, and the ship brought back the crew to Pearl Harbor while medical crews checked on the health of the 3 men. Other than having colds and being hungry, they were pronounced to be in pretty good shape. This is what I called, when I wrote my book on primary recovery ship cancellations, I called this the type 1 cancel, where the Iwo Jima was at the bottom of the hub. They have the type 2 cancel with the Iwo Jima at the top of it. The cache is a rubber stamp cache. A guy named Morris Beck sent 2 rubber stamps to each one of the recovery ships, the planned recovery ships, to use on all the mail going out. So the postal clerks on board the ships applied both the cache and the cancel. This one has the actual signatures of Jim Lovell, Jack Swigert, and Fred Hayes. Swigert died shortly after this event, and his signature is really, really hard to get. I'm glad I got mine early. Okay, next one. going through a box at one of our shows, and I found this cover. It looked like a standard, ordinary Art of Pages cachet until I saw the words at the bottom that said, "Welcome aboard," which was unusual. So I bought the cover for $1 or $2. And it turned out, when we did some research on it, that an officer aboard the Iwo Jima bought about 500 envelopes for the crews to buy and return to their friends and family, showing that they were there at the time of the recovery. So I notified the rest of the space unit about that, and they immediately started looking for these things. So they're nice. I met Lovell in person, had him sign my cover. Here you see the Type 2 cancel with Iwo Jima at the top. This is an official Beck cachet. The same man who gave the rubber stamps to each one of the ships would take envelopes from, we would send them up to 5 envelopes and 2 cents per envelope. So we'd send him a dime and 5 envelopes, and he put on a 2 or 3 color printed cachet. At the bottom of the cachet, you'll see a B838. This means it's the 838th ship cover that he made. He used to do them only for regular recovery ships, but starting with the last of the Mercury shots, he started working with collectors to get these kind of cachets. And the Beck cachet is really popular. It'll sell for about 4 or 5 times more than the rubber stamp cachets. Okay, next. I bought this cover and I thought that the cancel looked really strange. And if you look closely, there's no killer bars. Now, and that's unusual. Also, the gray is a different color gray from the color of the ink pads on board the recovery ship. I showed this to Ben Ramkissoon, who was our president of the space unit at that time, and he knew the people who sent this. I've erased their names from the corner of this cover because I don't want to pass along information about who they were. But he told me that he knew these people. They wouldn't have done anything like this. But then eventually 3 or 4 other kind of funky looking covers showed up. And he admitted that these were made by this couple. They had died. But he finally went ahead and backed me up in verifying that this is a fake cancel. Now, in addition to the primary recovery ship, or PRS, a fleet of secondary recovery ships were stationed around the globe like a necklace, so that when the capsules came down, if they were 200-300 miles off base, or if they had to be brought down early, like the Gemini 8 crew was in another ocean, there would be someone nearby to recover them. So these are covers from the Benjamin Stoddard, the USS New, and using a different cachet from Bob Ekus, the Kawashiwi. The Stoddard was based in the Pacific, the New was out in the Atlantic, and the Kawashiwi was also in the Atlantic, but closer to the islands, Pacific Islands. Now, the judging, I wrote rules here in my talk, but they never, the astroflag or the exhibiting rules aren't really rules. They're suggestions, they say, but they pretty much mark you down if you don't follow what they want. And some of the judges with a little knowledge would say, well, Cape Canaveral didn't have anything to do with the recovery. And the date is April 20th, and that's recovered on April 17th. Well, in this case, the US Navy ship Vanguard did not have a postal station on board, and so they couldn't get the covers that were sent to them canceled until they returned to port at Cape Canaveral. So that's one of the exceptions to that particular suggested rule. The Vanguard, by the way, and the Redstone were Apollo instrumentation ships, and they performed the tracking, telemetry, and communication functions for the Apollo lunar landing missions. During the launch phase in Earth orbit insertion, these ships filled the gaps beyond the range of land tracking stations. Okay, here we have a Kennedy Space Center cancel on the recovery date. I complained that the judges, much after we had started collecting space covers, started telling us that we couldn't use Kennedy Space Center cancels because they had nothing to do with the recovery. But there's a place they call the Mila, or it's a station that takes well, it's from the Merritt Island launch area, but it takes the images that are sent from the Apollo ships, spaceships, while they're in deep space and around the moon and from the moon itself, and they convert them from digital to analog so people can enjoy seeing live from the moon activities. Mila happens to be on Kennedy Space Center property. So I argued that, and eventually they asked me to write the new rules for exhibiting astrophilately, which I did. On the right, touching both the cancel and the stamp is the KSC official. These were only supposed to be used on the dates of launch, but this is kind of a favored cachet. Also earlier, I told you about the closed globe NASA cancel. This is the open globe NASA cancel. You'll see the meatball here is black with the word NASA in white on it. So this was actually canceled at the small Kennedy Space Center facility. Well, after the crew was returned to Pearl Harbor in Hawaii on April 19th, they were flown to Arlington Air Force Base near Johnson Space Center. It's 10 miles away, for debriefings, reunions with families and friends. And during that time, they also thanked all the various personnel who had assisted in their rescue. Okay. And then finally, the Apollo astronauts later on went to Grumman and all of the other manufacturing companies who had helped with the planning the means by which they could return safely to the Earth, to thank them all for the fine work they did in building both the LEM and the modules themselves, and finding ways for them to keep alive and arrive home safely. This was the most dramatic of all the manned space activities to this date, and resulted in a movie by Ron Howard, made so that younger generations, along with those of us who followed it live, would know about the extraordinary efforts it took to save the lives of the Apollo 13 crew. And as he said in the beginning, failure is not an option. The end.
Very good.
Thanks, Ray.
Sure.
That was great. I was just
Ray, thank you very much for that, Ray. Appreciate you putting up the exhibit and the time I'm sure you spent researching a lot of that. It's interesting stuff.
52 years of researching all this stuff. I've really enjoyed the hobby.
Are you following the Dragon crew and the new space program?
Yeah, I got covers for the launch and for the recovery down by Pensacola, yes.
Yeah, I was watching a lot of that on TV. I tell you, that was something else to see.
Well, things have been so slow that we don't have anybody creating caches any longer. So those of us who still are following this closely have to send off and get 10 or 12 covers and put our own caches on, which I did. Okay.
Rick, excuse me. Ray, thank you very much. Rick, I want to thank you for setting us up and acting as a focal point and the coordinator for everything.
Happy to do it.
Chief Technical Representative. Has anybody in the meeting got anything else they wish to discuss? Damp related primarily? I have nothing else. We'll see what October brings.
Okay.
Okay.
If you guys want to hang on, I'll stop recording.